The night glittered with everything Hollywood loved to show the world. Polished marble floors, crystal chandeliers dripping with light, and a red carpet rolled out like a promise of importance. Cameras flashed relentlessly as celebrities stepped out of black SUVs, each arrival more dramatic than the last. Designers' names floated through the air like status symbols, whispered by reporters and shouted by fans pressed against barricades. Inside the venue, laughter mixed with clinking glasses, and conversations revolved around box office numbers, brand deals, and who was sitting next to whom. It was a room built on image, ego, and unspoken competition, where every smile was measured and every outfit silently judged. When Keanu Reeves arrived, there was no dramatic pause, no entourage blocking the view. He stepped onto the carpet quietly, dressed in a simple black suit that looked more practical than fashionable. No bold colors, no extravagant jewelry, just clean lines and worn-in confidence. A few photographers recognized him late and scrambled to lift their cameras, while others barely noticed, too focused on louder personalities demanding attention. Keanu nodded politely, offering a small smile that carried no hint of urgency. He wasn't trying to win the room, he was simply present in it. And in a space obsessed with being seen, that calm indifference stood out more than any designer label. Across the room, an arrogant A-list celebrity, one of the night's loudest stars, leaned toward their circle, eyes narrowing as they noticed Keanu. The celebrity's outfit was flawless by industry standards, tailored to scream relevance and dominance. With a smirk, they whispered something sharp, glancing at Keanu's understated suit. A few in the group chuckled, their laughter carefully controlled but unmistakably dismissive. The words didn't need to be heard to be understood. The message was clear. He doesn't belong at the top anymore. The celebrity laughed a little louder, feeding on the attention, confident that status gave them permission to belittle quietly. The murmurs rippled outward. A stylist rolled her eyes. A publicist leaned in, curious. Someone repeated the joke under their breath, polishing it as it passed along. The laughter grew, not boisterous, but sharp and brittle, like glass clinking too hard. Keanu stood just close enough to catch the tone, if not the exact words. He turned his head slightly, his expression unreadable. For a brief moment, his eyes met the arrogant celebrity's gaze. There was no anger there, no challenge, just a calm awareness, as if he had seen the scene play out countless times before and already knew how it ended. Keanu looked away and continued speaking with a nearby crew member, listening intently as they talked about a technical issue on set. His posture remained relaxed, his hands loosely folded, his attention genuine. Around him, the contrast was impossible to ignore. While others postured and postured again, Keanu's stillness felt almost disruptive. A young assistant noticed and whispered to another, "That's Keanu Reeves." The second assistant glanced over, then back at the laughing group, and something shifted in their expression. Confusion, maybe even discomfort. The room buzzed with energy, but beneath it ran a current of tension, as if something unspoken was waiting for permission to surface. The arrogant celebrity laughed once more, louder this time, clearly expecting a reaction. None came. Keanu didn't confront them. He didn't correct them. He didn't perform outrage for the cameras. He simply stood there, grounded and unbothered, as if their arrogance carried no weight in his world. And in that quiet refusal to engage, the balance subtly changed. What began as mockery now felt exposed, small, unnecessary, and strangely insecure. The night was still young, the lights still bright, but in that single silent moment, something shifted. The room didn't realize it yet, but the line had been crossed, and Hollywood was about to watch what happens when humility refuses to bow to ego. The interview stage sat at the center of the ballroom like a throne, bathed in white light and surrounded by cameras that never blinked. Two velvet chairs faced the host, angled just enough to frame the guests perfectly for the live broadcast. Keanu Reeves took his seat with the same quiet composure he carried everywhere, hands resting loosely, posture relaxed, eyes attentive. Across from him, the arrogant celebrity leaned back as if the stage belonged to them alone. One arm draped over the chair, a confident smile fixed permanently in place. They played to the cameras before the first question was even asked. The audience settled in, unaware that what was meant to be a polished segment was about to fracture into something far more uncomfortable. The host began with safe questions, upcoming projects, career highlights, light banter meant to keep things smooth. Keanu answered thoughtfully, often pausing to give credit to directors, writers, and crew members. He spoke slowly, choosing humility over hype, and the audience leaned in, drawn to his grounded presence. But the arrogant celebrity seemed restless, tapping a foot, interrupting with exaggerated laughter whenever Keanu finished a sentence. Each interruption was small enough to excuse, just barely polite enough to pass as enthusiasm, yet pointed enough to undermine. The cameras caught it all, the contrast between quiet respect and performative confidence growing sharper by the second. Then came the moment that changed the tone. As Keanu began speaking about the importance of collaboration in filmmaking, the arrogant celebrity leaned forward, cutting him off mid-sentence. With a smirk aimed directly at the audience, they said, "Asterisk, that's a very old-school way of looking at things. Some of us have moved on." Asterisk, a ripple of uneasy laughter passed through the room. The host froze for half a second too long, unsure whether to steer the conversation away or let it breathe. The comment hung in the air, not overtly cruel, but unmistakably dismissive, an attempt to frame Keanu as outdated, irrelevant in a business obsessed with what's new. Keanu didn't react immediately. He simply stopped speaking and listened. His eyes lowered briefly, not in defeat, but in quiet reflection. The camera zoomed in, searching for a reaction that never came. No forced smile, no sharp comeback. Just a measured pause that felt heavier than any argument. Around them, the audience shifted in their seats. A few claps followed, weak and uncertain, clearly unsure who they were meant to support. The arrogant celebrity mistook the noise for approval and leaned back again, nodding as if they had just delivered a clever punchline. The host tried to recover, offering Keanu the chance to respond. Asterisk, "Keanu, what do you think about that?" Asterisk, the question was gentle, almost apologetic. Keanu lifted his gaze and smiled faintly, not at the celebrity, but at the host. "Every generation brings something new," he said calmly. Asterisk, "but the people who make movies, the crews, the artists behind the scenes, they're timeless." Asterisk, his voice carried no edge, only sincerity. The room quieted. The arrogant celebrity scoffed softly, rolling their eyes just enough for the camera to catch it. That small gesture, magnified on the giant screens above the stage, landed harder than words ever could. Whispers spread quickly. A producer off to the side frowned. A veteran actor in the front row crossed their arms, visibly uncomfortable. The disrespect was no longer subtle, it had crossed into public humiliation. Keanu felt it, not as an attack on himself, but as something uglier, the casual belittling of values he held deeply. He didn't argue. He didn't defend his legacy. Instead, he glanced past the stage lights and noticed a young production assistant nervously adjusting cables, clearly stressed by the tension. Keanu's attention shifted away from the spotlight entirely. While the arrogant celebrity basked in the glow of forced laughter, Keanu quietly prepared to step away, unaware that this decision, made in silence, was about to reveal the true difference between fame and character and set the stage for a moment Hollywood would never forget. Keanu Reeves stepped off the interview stage without ceremony, the applause behind him uneven and uncertain. The bright lights faded as he moved into the quieter corridors behind the ballroom, where the glamour thinned and reality crept back in. Here, the air smelled faintly of cables, warm electronics, and hurried footsteps. Crew members moved with practiced urgency, carrying equipment, whispering into headsets, and doing their best to keep the evening running smoothly despite the tension still buzzing in the room. Keanu blended into this world naturally, as if he belonged more here than under the chandeliers. He nodded at passing staff, offering soft smiles that went mostly unnoticed, but never unappreciated. Near a cluster of lighting rigs, a raised voice cut through the background noise. The arrogant celebrity from the stage stood there, face tight with irritation, gesturing sharply at a young production assistant. The assistant looked barely out of college, hands trembling as they tried to explain a minor technical delay. Words like incompetent and wasting my time spilled out loud enough for others to hear. Nearby crew members avoided eye contact, pretending to focus on their tasks while the tension thickened. This wasn't a scene meant for cameras, just raw ego flexing its power where it felt safest, away from the public smiles. Keanu slowed his steps. He didn't rush in or raise his voice. He simply approached, placing himself gently but firmly between the celebrity and the assistant. His presence alone shifted the energy. The shouting paused, surprised by the interruption. Keanu spoke calmly, his tone steady and respectful. "It looks like there's a small issue with the connection," he said, glancing at the equipment. Asterisk, that happens. Let's figure it out. Asterisk, there was no accusation, no moral lecture. Just problem solving. The assistant exhaled, shoulders dropping slightly, as if someone had finally turned down the volume on the room. The arrogant celebrity scoffed, clearly irritated at the intrusion. This isn't your problem, they snapped. Keanu met their gaze, not with challenge, but with clarity. It's everyone's problem when people are treated like this, he replied quietly. The words landed with unexpected weight. A few crew members stopped moving, pretending to check monitors while listening closely. The celebrity hesitated, suddenly aware of the audience they hadn't realized was there. With a dismissive wave, they muttered something under their breath and stormed off toward the VIP lounge, leaving behind a silence that felt almost sacred. Keanu turned back to the assistant, kneeling slightly to inspect the cables. He asked their name, listened carefully as they explained the issue, and helped adjust the setup with hands that clearly weren't afraid of doing the work himself. Within moments, the problem was solved. You did nothing wrong, Keanu said gently. Asterisk, these nights are hectic. You handled it well. Asterisk, the assistant's eyes filled with tears, not from humiliation this time, but relief. Someone nearby discreetly pulled out their phone, recording not for fame, but because moments like this felt rare and important. As Keanu stood and prepared to leave, the energy around him had changed completely. Crew members exchanged looks, small nods of respect, unspoken gratitude. No announcement was made. No speech followed. Keanu simply blended back into the flow of the event, unnoticed by the spotlight he had just stepped away from. But the phone recording continued, capturing the quiet aftermath, the relieved assistant, the steadied crew, the absence of shouting. Within hours, that short clip would travel far beyond the ballroom, igniting conversations Hollywood wasn't ready for. In choosing kindness over confrontation, Keanu had done something far more powerful than winning an argument. He had shown, in the simplest way possible, what real authority looks like. The video surfaced quietly at first, posted by an anonymous account with no caption, just raw footage, unfiltered and unmistakable. Within minutes, it began to spread. A few retweets turned into hundreds, then thousands. By morning, it had crossed platforms, appearing in feeds alongside trending hashtags and breaking news banners. The clip was short, barely a minute long, yet it carried more weight than any polished interview from the night before. Viewers watched Keanu Reeves step calmly into the chaos, heard his steady voice, and saw the instant shift in the room. No edits, no dramatic music, just truth unfolding in real time. Online reactions exploded, comment sections filled with disbelief and admiration. This is what real leadership looks like, one user wrote. Keanu didn't defend himself, he defended someone who needed it, said another. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Screenshots of the arrogant celebrity's earlier interview remarks circulated beside the clip, creating a narrative no publicist could rewrite. Memes appeared within hours, comparing forced laughter on stage to genuine respect behind the scenes. The internet, always hungry for authenticity, latched on hard, and this time it wasn't letting go. Hollywood insiders took notice next. Quiet conversations sparked in studios, talent agencies, and production offices. Producers remembered past complaints that had been brushed aside. Crew members shared similar stories in private group chats, patterns emerging where once there had been isolated incidents. Invitations were quietly reconsidered. Meetings were postponed. A name that once guaranteed buzz now carried hesitation. Meanwhile, Keanu's representatives received messages from across the industry. Not requests for statements, but simple acknowledgments. We saw it, they said. Asterisk, thank him for reminding people how this should work. Asterisk, the arrogant celebrities team scrambled into damage control mode. Statements were drafted and redrafted, each version softer than the last. The initial response, a denial, collapsed under the weight of the video. Next came excuses about stress, miscommunication, and out-of-context moments. None of it landed. Audiences had seen too much, too clearly. Even neutral observers felt the imbalance. One person using power to intimidate, another using presence to protect. Late-night shows hinted at the controversy. Commentators avoided names but made the message obvious. The silence from the celebrity grew louder with every hour. Keanu, for his part, said nothing. He declined interview requests and ignored trending headlines. When asked privately, he brushed it off with a simple line, asterisk, people were just doing their jobs. Asterisk, no victory lap. No moral high ground claimed. That restraint only amplified the impact. Fans noticed. Journalists noticed. In an industry where self-promotion was currency, his refusal to capitalize felt almost radical. The story stopped being about a confrontation and became something larger, a reflection of what audiences were tired of tolerating. By the end of the week, the narrative had solidified. The arrogant celebrity released a carefully worded apology, more obligation than remorse, while Keanu was quietly praised in rooms he never entered. The video continued to circulate, now framed as a lesson rather than a scandal. Crew members shared it during onboarding meetings. Film schools discussed it in ethics classes. The truth had come out, not through press releases or staged confessions, but through a single, unguarded moment. And Hollywood, forced to look at itself without filters, realized something had shifted. Respect, once optional, was suddenly non-negotiable, and everyone knew exactly who had drawn that line. The days following the viral video felt different, as if Hollywood itself had taken a quiet breath. The noise hadn't stopped. There were still premieres, announcements, and endless chatter, but something beneath it had shifted. Studios became more cautious, conversations more deliberate. The arrogant celebrity's name, once spoken with excitement, was now accompanied by pauses and careful glances. Projects rumored to feature them were suddenly under review, and meetings that had been easy to secure were postponed indefinitely. No one announced a blacklist, yet the message was clear. Behavior once tolerated was now a liability. In contrast, Keanu Reeves moved through the industry exactly as he always had, unbothered, unannounced, and seemingly untouched by the storm he had never tried to create. When the arrogant celebrity finally broke their silence, the apology arrived wrapped in polished language and legal caution. It spoke of growth, reflection, and misunderstandings. But to the public, it felt hollow, less an acknowledgement of harm and more a response to consequences. Comments flooded in, comparing it to Keanu's quiet actions rather than his words. The contrast was unavoidable. One had spoken when the cameras demanded it. The other had acted when no one was supposed to be watching. And in that difference, audiences found their answer about who truly deserved admiration. Behind the scenes, something far more meaningful unfolded. Keanu quietly made a donation through a private foundation, directing funds toward film crew support programs, mental health resources, emergency assistance, and training grants for entry-level workers. There was no press release, no mention on social media. The news surfaced only because a grateful organizer shared an anonymous thank you, later confirmed by industry sources. When asked, Keanu deflected credit entirely. "They're the backbone of everything," he said simply. Asterisk, taking care of them shouldn't be special, it should be normal. Asterisk, that sentence spread almost as fast as the original video. For the young production assistant at the center of the moment, life changed quietly but profoundly. Confidence replaced fear. They found themselves speaking up more, supported by colleagues who now felt emboldened to do the same. Others shared similar stories, moments when they wished someone had stepped in, and moments when Keanu's example inspired them to do it themselves. The ripple effect was real. Sets felt a little safer, voices a little stronger. Respect, once assumed to be hierarchical, began to feel communal. Keanu never commented on the arrogant celebrity directly, even as interviewers tried to provoke him. He redirected conversations toward teamwork, gratitude, and the people behind the camera. Fans noticed that, too. Tributes appeared online, not flashy edits, but simple messages. Asterisk, this is why we respect him. Asterisk, this is what real class looks like. Asterisk, the phrase that surfaced again and again was the same one whispered backstage that night. Fame is loud, character is quiet. And in a culture addicted to noise, that quiet carried immense power. The story eventually faded from headlines, replaced by the next controversy, the next viral moment. But the impact lingered. The arrogant celebrity would recover, perhaps slowly, perhaps never fully. Keanu Reeves would continue as he always had, walking away from spotlights toward people. And for those who witnessed it, either in person or through a screen, the lesson remained clear. In Hollywood, fame is rented, applause is temporary, and influence can vanish overnight. But integrity, shown in a single unguarded moment, can change everything.